How many of you have grown up in an Indian household? I speak from experience. There is always a big brother who kind of commands all the siblings. You keep the big brother happy and you are the best person that the planet has ever had. But when mistakenly you piss off the elder one, you suddenly land in hell. Before you slip into your childhood memories, let me bring you back and tell you I am talking about the United States of America. Yes, after the British lost their control over colonies, the world was slowly becoming a hub of free nations like never before. And then began the Cold War. The two superpowers started playing around with the narrative depending on whether you were on the American side or the Soviet bloc. At that point in time, the countries that had recently gained independence wanted to focus on their own development rather than fighting a war that was not their own. The case with India was no different. But now where do we stand and what does the future hold? The major question is how the person sitting at the White House would influence bilateral ties. Let's find all the answers to these questions. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Savita Mishra and this is TFI Post. Recently, the USA released a report called SIGAR, which stands for Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. The report blamed India for the USA's strategic failure on Afghan soil. It stated that India funded the Taliban warlords. How convenient. Even though the report holds no value, this allegation is enough to ruin the already shaky relationship that India and USA share. The Biden administration is paving the way for diplomatic doom and making things difficult for the next president. The Cold War era was tough for India and the India-US ties could never flourish as they did in the last 10 years. The best era being the era of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi with Donald Trump as his counterpart. Trump was elected to the White House in 2016 and there was a shift in the political landscape in the US. The Indian government moved quickly and the PM Modi met Trump in 2017. Trump visited India just before the elections. With the election of the President Trump, India-US ties were elevated to the point that the two nations considered themselves to be in a comprehensive global strategic partnership. The US became the biggest arms exporter to India. The country signed the Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement for Geospatial Cooperation (BECA), laying the foundation to bolster defense ties. India has procured over $18 billion worth of defense items from the US, almost half of this in the last 5 years. India conducts more bilateral exercises with the US than any other country. And under Trump, the announcement of India's elevation to Tier 1 of the Strategic Trade Authorization License exception has opened up US defense technologies from the time when India faced a technology denial regime. There was a shared concern about China's aggression. The concern over China and a strong rapport between Trump and PM Modi strengthened the relationship between the two nations. The two nations increased their cooperation on several issues, one of which was terrorism. Trump was overtly against the rogue nation's policy of state-sponsored terrorism. It was under Trump's rule that not only Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar was designated as a global terrorist post-Pulwama attack, but Pakistan was also placed on the grey list of the FATF. India not only enhanced its ties with America in the field of security and trade, but also maintained good geopolitical relations with its friends around the world. The nation maintained its position, be it in Bangladesh, Afghanistan or Iran. The cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region increased and India had begun asserting itself on the global stage, be it by speaking on Kashmir as an internal matter or the revival of Quad. The cooperation was witnessed in the times of the COVID pandemic as well, when pharmaceutical companies from both countries collaborated to expand global supplies of critical medicines and on the progress of vaccine development. Viewed through the geopolitical lens, America needs India to counterbalance China in Asia. When Joe Biden was elected to the office, India thought of taking the bond that had developed in the last 4 years forward. However, Biden was quick to trace back. The Biden administration happened to be a strong supporter of Pakistan. Under him, the United States once surpassed China as a leading source of FDI in Pakistan. Despite rising inflation, fuel shortages, and crumbling infrastructure, Biden has urged US companies to invest in Pakistan. Not only that, but the US is facilitating the return of IMF funds to Pakistan. Not only this, the Biden administration also removed the funds drought that Pakistan was going through by allocating around $450 million in the name of Fleet Sustainment Program for F-16 fighter jets. This was the first fund allocation to Pakistan after it was halted by his predecessor in 2018. There is no denying the fact that Islamists are a major vote base of the Democratic Party back in America. This can be a viable reason behind America's blind support for Pakistan and Palestine instead of India and Israel. This is also a reason why the Biden administration pulls out the human rights card against India every time elections are around the corner. Through reports like that of USCIRF, America has always tried to keep the Indian establishment in check, alleging through the reports that human rights are endangered in the Indian subcontinent or putting out vague claims like minorities are safe in India. Although upholding democratic values and protecting human rights have been the two flags that the US has never dropped. It was during the 2+2 dialogue last year that the US raised the issue of India's human rights record in a public forum. If you remember, the Indian Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar said that if you have human rights concerns about India, we too have concerns over human rights issue in America. This was a message that America needs to keep an arm's length from India's internal affairs. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken probably raised the issue with the progressive Democratic base in mind. The issue was raised by Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from the progressive wing of the party. She had brought up the issue of India's human rights records. If you remember, it was the same Ilhan Omar who visited POK during her visit to Pakistan. Upon strong condemnation by India, the American establishment distanced itself from the visit. We all have witnessed how America under Biden has been juggling between India and Pakistan. Upon its failed attempts to woo India and take its side against Russia, the Biden administration was much furious. America tried multiple times, first through cajoling and then by arm twisting, to bring India on its side. However, India kept asserting its national requirements, and we purchased huge amounts of discounted oil from Russia in the aftermath of Russia-Ukraine crisis. This may be a probable reason why America is going back to Pakistan. And what happens just after that? India signs the biggest trade deal in the history with the United States. What did America say? It said it is worried about Pakistan's possession of nuclear weapons. Biden referred to Pakistan as one of the most dangerous nations in the world, possessing nukes without any cohesion. The Biden administration is worried that Pakistan's nuclear weapon could fall into the hands of terrorist or jihadi elements. To cajole India, Biden, who was never looked at as a China hawk, has gone all guns blazing at the dragon. The US Senate recently passed a resolution that recognizes Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of India. The bill condemned China's unilateral aggression on the LAC. However, the ones who could smell the geopolitical coffee knew that the step was not to mend ties with India, but that resolution was brought in to cater the anti-China sentiments. To check China's dictatorial rise, the US needs to team up with other countries hurt by China's action. However, America must understand that although India is surrounded by hostile neighbors, being the enemy of the enemy doesn't make you India's ultimate friend, for which you will have to think in terms of India's benefits and favors. Under Joe Biden, the US has been trying to make India believe that it is the best friend India needs and that the countries have strong bilateral relations. However, Democrats have been the most confusing regarding their India policy. They just don't know whether to cajole India or take on its rising power. Be it a CAATSA waiver to India or participating in India's Atmanirbhar campaign by assisting in the development of jet engine technology, the balancing act can't do away with the fact that Biden first tried to use Pakistan against India. The one taking the legacy forward in the White House would have great worries about how to manage the relationship at a time when India has just refused to submit and in the opposite direction is asserting itself over alleged superpowers.